After taking us through the early days of their romance in Volume 1, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have used the last 3 episodes of their controversial Netflix series to talk about their departure from royal duties and subsequent falling out with the royal family. The couple have now come out with some bombshell allegations, and Prince Harry seems to have gone for the jugular, accusing Prince William of leaking negative stories about him and Meghan to the media. As a result, the latest addition to the series has been met with some heavy pushback. So let's explore why that is. Here are the top 10 moments in Harry and Meghan's documentary that made them seem unlikable. Number 10, Freedom Flight. The final episode of the Netflix series begins with a video note taken by Harry as the couple flew away from Canada to LA, having completed their royal engagements. Harry said, "We are on the Freedom Flight, and I wonder what would have happened to us had we not got out when we did." Meghan also recalled a comment made to her by a plane crew member as she was leaving the UK for good after her final royal appearance on their farewell tour. She said that while she was on the flight, a crew member thanked her for her royal service, which made her emotional. She was traveling to be reunited with their son Archie, while Harry remained in the UK to finalize the details following the Megxit. Meghan said, "I get on the plane and not the pilot, but whoever was overseeing the crew, he came and he knelt next to my seat and took his hat off. I just remember looking at him and he goes, 'We appreciate everything you did for this country.'" The Duchess explained that this was the first time someone recognized the sacrifice that she had made. She said, "Not for my own country, for this country. It's not mine." And that's the piece that's so triggering, because you go, and it still wasn't good enough and you still don't fit in. According to Meghan, once she landed in Canada, she collapsed in the arms of one of Harry's security guards and started crying. Quote, "I was like, I tried so hard," and he goes, "I know you did. I know you did, ma'am." So it was apparently a very emotional moment for her. Number 9, William leaked stories. In the latest episodes, Harry accused William's office of briefing against him by leaking negative stories about him and his wife Meghan to the media. He spoke about the dirty game played by the royal communications teams and the media, where they would trade damaging stories about one another in exchange for a negative story about another family member being dropped. Harry then explained that there's leaking, but there's also planting of stories. So if the communications team want to be able to remove a negative story about their principal, they will trade and give you something about someone else's principal. Apparently, he and his brother had agreed to stop this practice after seeing how it happened with their father's office during their breakdown in his marriage to their mother, the late Princess Diana. But now he claims that his brother went back on this agreement. Quote, "To see my brother's office copy the very same thing that we promised the two of us would never ever do, that was heartbreaking. I would far rather get destroyed in the press than play along with this game, or this business of trading." That's a pretty big accusation to swing against William, to insinuate that he or his people fed the press negative stories on Meghan, all to try and get the heat off someone else. Whether or not that was something that actually happened is one of the biggest allegations made in this documentary, and it would likely do the opposite of repairing the rift between them. Number 8, his brother turned against him. In the 5th episode of the series, the couple recounts a family meeting that took place to discuss their decision to reduce their roles as working members of the royal family. Harry claimed that there were arrangements made to ensure that Meghan was not in the room and left out of the discussion. He said, "It was terrifying to have my brother scream and shout at me, and my father say things that simply weren't true, and my grandmother quietly sit there and sort of take it all in." He described the meeting as hard and said that it ended without a solid plan of action. He went on to say, "The saddest part of it was the wedge created between myself and my brother, so that he is now on the institution side." The allegations that Harry has now leveled at William, who is heir to the throne, will clearly cause the most headaches at the palace. It also points out the deterioration of what was once a close bond between the two brothers. Throughout their lives, the younger generation of the royal family has tried to find a balance between the fast-changing society that we have now and the rigid institution that is the monarchy. The tension can really be seen when you look at how William and Harry are living now. One leads a life of traditional duty, charity work, and military pageantry, while the other resides outside of LA and seems to be a bit more interested in Hollywood at the moment than anything else. Number 7, they were jealous of Meghan. In the 2nd installment of the series, Harry hinted that there was some kind of jealousy from other royals towards Meghan, given the amount of media attention that she was receiving. He said, "The issue is when someone who's marrying in, who should be a supporting act, is then stealing the limelight or is doing the job better than the person who was born to do this, this, that upsets people. It upsets the balance, because you have been led to believe that the only way your charities can succeed and your mission can grow is if you are on the front pages of those newspapers. He then gave an example, saying that the first time the penny dropped was when he and Meghan were at Buckingham Palace after a joint event with every senior member of the royal family. That morning, every paper had Meghan on the front and center, with Kate Middleton on the side. He went on to explain Meghan's name would appear on the front page of the Telegraph, and then recalled her saying, "But it's not my fault," to which he said, "I know, and my mum felt the same way." According to Harry, at this point, the press coverage of his wife started becoming more and more negative, as it became apparent that she was taking attention away from other members of the family. Number 6, calling the royal family cold. When Meghan and Harry saw the royal family for the first time since announcing their decision to step back, Harry said it looked and felt a bit cold. The couple were at Westminster Abbey for the Commonwealth service, and he said, "I felt really distant from the rest of my family," which is interesting because so much of how they operate is what it looks like and not what it feels like. But it looked cold, and it also felt cold. After discussing the death of his grandfather, the Duke of Edinburgh, Harry also spoke about the time that he flew back to the UK to attend Prince Philip's funeral. He admitted that it was hard going back for the first time since he and Meghan left the royal family, and it was difficult talking to his father and brother, who very much focused on the same misinterpretation of the whole situation. He said, "None of us wanted to talk about it at my grandfather's funeral, but we did. I've had to make peace with the fact that we're probably never going to get genuine accountability or genuine apology. My wife and I were moving on, we're focused on what's coming next." Sadly though, despite admitting that yes, it was hard, Harry also confessed that he missed the family gatherings at certain times of the year and seeing his friends. He explained that he's lost certain friends now, which just speaks to how much he has really sacrificed in the process of breaking away from his family. Number 5, Frogmore Cottage was too small. Something that really didn't sit right with viewers was when Meghan and Harry joked that their first royal home was too small and not what anyone would expect from a property in palace grounds. The couple lived in Nottingham Cottage, a grace and favour home in the grounds of Kensington Palace, prior to getting married in May of 2018. They then moved to Frogmore Cottage in Home Park, Windsor. They talk about this in episode 4, lamenting the reality of living at Kensington Palace, which sounds like a palace, but according to them, it wasn't. Harry says, "As far as people were concerned, we were living in a palace, and we were in a cottage on the palace grounds." Meghan said, "Kensington Palace sounds very regal. Of course it does. It says palace in the name, but Nottingham Cottage was so small." Harry then chimes in and says, "The whole thing's on a slight lean. Really low ceilings. I don't know who was there before. They must have been very short." Meghan then said that he would just hit his head constantly in that place because he's so tall. They also described the moment that Oprah Winfrey visited them at the cottage, looked around and said, "No one would ever believe it." So clearly they were not happy at all with the property, and perhaps that's when the couple decided to start their $3 million renovation. Number 4, Excluding Her Half-Sister. One of the biggest reasons that Meghan has been getting backlash for the docuseries is what she said about her half-sister Samantha Markle, who she claims was suddenly everywhere when her relationship with Harry went public. Meghan was bewildered by her comments in the press and said, "I don't know your middle name, I don't know your birthday. You're telling these people you raised me and calling me Princess Pushy." In the 3rd episode of the series, the audience is also introduced to Ashley Hale, Meghan's niece and the daughter of Samantha Markle. The Duchess then recalls her heartbreak at being told by the firm that Ashley couldn't come to her wedding to Prince Harry because it would look bad that she was invited but Samantha wasn't. But since that revelation was made public, anonymous sources at the palace have come out denying the claims. One told Sunday Times, "That just didn't happen. We never gave any advice, steer, or guidance on who of her family or friends should or shouldn't come." They further explained that Meghan wanted to shield Ashley from the onslaught of media attention and said that it was her who decided not to invite her niece. Quote, "It was not a question she put to us. We would never tell her not to invite her own niece, and we would never get involved in any management of personal relationships." Another royal insider chimed in and said, "Meghan didn't want the media to know about Ashley. No one on earth would have said, 'Don't invite family to the wedding.' That's a complete and utter lie." Number 3, they were sabotaged. The couple spoke about the difficulties they encountered when they made their decision to quit as working members of the royal family. Harry said that he initially asked for a half-in, half-out arrangement, where he and Meghan would have their own jobs but would still work in support of the Queen. But during a family meeting about the topic, he said it became very clear very quickly that the goal was not up for discussion or debate. The couple then described creating a plan that they hoped would bring them both safety and peace of mind. They talked about relocating to New Zealand or South Africa before they ultimately settled on Canada. In 2019, Harry claimed that the palace signed off on them moving to South Africa, which is something that the officers of his father, his brother, and his grandmother knew about. He said no one else knew, it was all very much an internal document. Then it was leaked to the Times newspaper, and the whole plan was then scrapped. After this, Harry then spoke to his father over the phone about the possibility of them moving to Canada, to which Charles said, "Can you put that in writing?" So he did. Only after that did they find out that the tabloids knew about their proposal, as the emails to his father had somehow been leaked. Meghan summed up the accusation saying, "His dad said put it in writing, and he did, and it was just 5 days later that it was on the front page of a newspaper." So the Sussexes are basically saying that their plans were deliberately ruined by the family. Number 2, blocked from seeing the Queen. Harry said his grandmother, the Queen, was aware that they were having difficulties with their public roles and made plans to discuss it in early January 2020 when he was set to return to Britain. Apparently, he spoke to his grandmother and arranged to meet her with Meghan as they were reaching their decision to quit the family. Quote, "She knew that we were finding things hard. I'd spoken to her many times about it." But as the meeting approached, Meghan said they received a message from an aide telling them that they were not allowed to see the monarch. Apparently, when they called, Her Majesty said, "I've actually been told that I'm busy all week." Meghan then chimed in and said, "I remember looking at H and going, my gosh, this is when a family and a family business are in direct conflict because they're blocking you from seeing the Queen. But really, what they're doing is blocking a grandson from seeing his grandmother." Harry also accused Prince William's office of putting out a joint statement on behalf of both of them without his permission, after a newspaper article was published claiming William's bullying was one of the reasons he and Meghan had wanted to give up their royal titles. He said, "No one asked me permission to put my name into a statement like that. Within 4 hours, they were happy to lie to protect my brother, and yet for 3 years, they were never willing to tell the truth to protect us." And coming in at number 1, War on the Press. The 5th episode begins with the couple's continued war with the news media and mentions their over-the-top efforts to dodge paparazzi in 2019 while they were spending time away from the royals at Christmas. At this point, the documentary displays the negative headlines about Meghan, which was said to have pushed the couple to a breaking point. Harry said the toll was visible, the emotional toll that it was having on both of us, but especially my wife. "We're going to have to change this for our own sake." The Duchess explained how she felt about the negative press attention, saying, "I realized that I wasn't being thrown to the wolves, I was being fed to the wolves." In the first part of the series, the couple accused the media of destroying them before they left the UK, and at one point Harry said, "Being part of this family, it is my duty to uncover this exploitation and bribery that happens within our media." He went on to say, "All royal news goes through the filter of newspapers within the royal rota, most of which, apart from the Telegraph, happen to be tabloids. It all comes down to control. It's like, this family is ours to exploit. Their trauma is our story and our narrative to control." For her part, Meghan said, "Truth be told, no matter how hard I tried, no matter how good I was, no matter what I did, they were still going to find a way to destroy me." So clearly, the couple have placed a large part of the blame for their problems on the press. Well, that's everything that we have on the list for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next video.